everyone, and welcome to another installment of Griffin Insiders. Once again, I'm your host, Claire Dirrigl, joined today by Griffin editor Aidan Ryan, and then USA members Anthony Kroese and Rich Kubiak. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Of course.
Thanks for having us again. Thanks for returning, because we did miss you.
I missed you guys
And that beautiful
too.
hair.
Oh, wow, thanks. Well, we're going to move on from the hair and talk about a couple of important issues today. Number one is our first story about Canisius club organizations. Everyone on campus is part of a club. Maybe you're part of the student paper, the Griffin, maybe you're in the classics club, you're in something. We're all in something. Now, one of the questions we're looking at today is, should all clubs be created equal, or should there be different levels to talk about funding and things like that? So keep these in mind while you check out this video.
One of the biggest problems I think we do have is all of our clubs are viewed at the same level. Not that there's one club that is better than another. However, an honor society is very different than student organizations such as Project Conservation or Italian Club, which is very different from a C Block or Griffin TV, the Griffin, or even the Undergraduate Student Association itself. So overall, I think there needs to be a reorganization of clubs that separates these into different categories for two parts. One, so it's easier to organize, easier to understand what we have on campus, and easier to take a look at. Two, when it comes to financial purposes, it's easier to take a look at all the honor societies at the same time. Take a look at all the service-based clubs such as Griffin TV and the Griffin and USA all at the same time, and then all the other student organizations and clubs, you can look at those at the same time. So we already are partially doing it in that sense, where all the other clubs go at the same time, and then the music organizations are separated out. From the finance committee meetings I've been to, it actually works out a little bit better because of the fact that you're sitting there and you're taking a look at all the music ones, and you can make a really good informed decision based on just the music organizations.
First, it gives these clubs a greater opportunity for collaboration within their special interest groups. I think right now we have so many clubs that it's hard to even know where you might fit into a particular group. So by looking at a list of clubs and seeing like, oh, I have something in common with these 15 other groups. If you want to host an event, if you want to host a fundraiser, you have an automatic group of people that you can reach out to. Secondly, on our end in the CPLD office, this ensures that we don't have too many clubs in one area with the same goal. So we don't have groups that are trying to step on one another's toes. It kind of helps us monitor. If we have a new group that wants to form that already has a club that's very similar, maybe we can lump those two together and kind of broaden what it is that they do. And thirdly, I think it allows the new student to Canisius an easier way to see how to get involved. So if you know that you're interested in something scientific, you can look at a list of clubs in the sciences and see, oh, well, here's like 10 different clubs that I can hop into right away, rather than looking at a massive list of 135 clubs and trying to find those special interest groups that way. And I support this decision. I think we're looking to take clubs in a new direction here at Canisius and kind of refresh the way that we do things, and this is a great first step.
Anthony, you're looking great in that video. So we're going to start with questions for you. Now, do you think that there's going to be any controversy over this from some clubs, think that they're going to be ranked too low? How are you going to kind of keep things equal and keep people happy?
I want to be very careful in the fact that we call it ranking. I don't think it would be considered ranking. Yes, I guess when you look at it, it could be considered a top to bottom viewing, but it doesn't change anyone's place. It's all going to continue to be fair. It's all going to continue to be equal. However, it's just a better way to look at it. I think Beth Kreblin made it to the point very clear that we are looking for a better way to do things. We're looking at it for programming. We're looking at it for just events in general, and possibly if the fitness center continues to go through, where we program. And I think that goes the same for clubs. We need to figure out a better way to organize them, a better way to look at them. Like I said in the video clip, it's really difficult to look at the Undergraduate Student Association and then compare it next to another smaller club. When you cut something from the Undergraduate Student Association, frequently we can absorb costs, we can find a different way to fund it. Whereas the other way around, another club, when you cut something from them, it's not as easy. Their fundraising might be a little bit more difficult. And another thing is the honor societies. Those are an academic service that specifically should be provided and should never be cut.
So how are you going to keep this in mind? You're going to look at the number of students involved. What exactly is it? Is it the service that you offer? Like, what qualifies you to get more money depending on your club?
I think that's really going to come down to, that'll be the nitty-gritty stuff when we get really into the heavy-duty work for deciding how it's going to be sorted out. I think it's going to first start with what the requirements are. I think club membership is really going to play a large role in it. I think the purpose and the mission of the organization is going to play a large role in it, and how they play on the whole campus, I think, is going to play even the biggest role.
I know, Aidan,
Yeah.
you're part of the Griffin, and you guys had a little bit of trouble getting funding this year as well, and you had to sell ad space to get the money you needed. Do you think that the Griffin is a different kind of club and organization? What's your opinion on this?
Well, first I'd like to say that, Anthony, I've never known you to bite off more than you can chew, but you do certainly have a big bite. This is quite the project, especially, as we wrap up the semester here, and an exciting one, I'm sure. I think as regards clubs like the Griffin, I think we're dealing almost entirely in gray area as far as what is a service. Because while I certainly think that, say, the Wire, for example, provides a great service because they give free DJing to all the clubs. The Griffin provides a service that I think goes even wider in that we provide information and news to even alumni and faculty, and also to residents in the Elmwood Village area. But say if I was in project conservation, with whom we've partnered on a few things, they could claim that they provide a service for the entire globe, so to speak. So I think that you might get some claims like that out of left field, or some reasonable ones. And sorting through that, have you thought much about how you do that?
Yeah, we have talked about that a little bit, Beth and I, about what we're planning to do. And this is something that other colleges do. They have different levels, they have different requirements, and I think, like you said, it's going to be one of those gray areas where we're going to have to work through it. I'll be the first to say I think it's going to be one of those processes where we set up the structure, and then over the next couple of years, it's going to have to be refined. It's going to have to be narrowed down, and work all the kinks out of it. So I think when it comes down to it as well, though, it's going to be who it specifically affects. Because like you said, yeah, the project conservation, they could make that claim, and you can make that claim for almost any club on campus, and that's an important thing to remember. But I think that it's when you really get down to exactly how we're going to divide them up, that's where it's really going to make the big difference.
Right. Do you have any loose categories so far, or are we still?
There's two ways that we can go about it. Earlier in the year, we toyed around with the idea at the council presidents of breaking them up into specifically what the interests are. So we talked about doing ones that were like the service, so it would be USA, C Block, and that type of organization, the music ensembles and culture clubs. The way that a lot of the West Coast schools have done it, specifically our Jesuit counterparts, they have different levels based on your type of charter. So if you have a very in-depth charter, you would be considered a chartered organization. So that would be like the Undergraduate Student Association, Student Programming Board, the Griffin. Things that are a little bit more in-depth, have a lot of people relying on it. Then as you go farther beyond that, the next level would be just a constitution, which we're very familiar with, and that's what we have on campus. And those would be constituted clubs. Then the next one would be bylaws. So those would be your one-page clubs that are very, the focus is very narrow, and something that doesn't require too much in depth. Maybe it's just something basic. I don't want to throw any clubs out there and make them think that there's different levels. And the last one would be considered more of a special interest, so something that you don't foresee lasting very long. Not because it's not necessarily an important club, just it might not be here for more than 5 years. It's something that's going to come, serve its purpose, and then probably move on. One that specifically comes to mind would be the Clown Society that we used to have on campus.
Or the Schuyler Colfax Thinking Club.
Thinking Club, that would be another great one.
I'm familiar with both of those.
Well, there you go.
Need more funding. Rich, I'm going to ask for your opinion on this because you're running for VP of Business and Finance. How does this kind of tie into your campaign, and what do you see the effect being on clubs?
Well, what Anthony has kind of stated is that it's not really going to affect financially how clubs are ranked. So the tier system won't necessarily say, oh, you can't get more than $5,000 because you're this club. So that's what I like about the system. At its core, it seems to just give a higher structure for clubs and programming, which is something that we could use, but it won't limit clubs in coming to ask for money for events, conferences, and that type of thing. What's great is that it makes sure that the service clubs really get what they need, but then the other clubs who have different focuses, are evaluated in a different way. So that's kind of where it ties in at its simplest core, because I don't know all the details regarding how it's going to be implemented and that type of thing over the next few years.
Yeah, well, organization is definitely needed with the different clubs now. There's just way too many. Do you know how many we have on campus now?
See, that's always a fluctuating
I know.
number.
They're always adding new ones in.
In my honest opinion, from what I had gathered from council presidents, I would fathom we're approximately at about 86. I would really put us at about 86 active clubs.
And because students always get new ideas for new clubs, is it going to be difficult to manage this, or is it going to make it easier if students want to come up with a new club they would like to start here?
I think you're going to see it become easier.
Really?
You're going to see an opportunity, so now you know exactly where they're going to fit. You can specifically advertise the fact that, oh, well, we already have 27 clubs here, and this is where it would fit, so let's take a look. Is there any overlap? And we're going to be able to gauge that and find out if there is overlap. I did want to add in about the financial aspect of it. I think it would also help the clubs because you're going to sit there and you're going to be able to say, let's take care of all of this group. And they all have similar goals, similar missions. Let's take care of the next one. So this way then you're not jumping from a budget of maybe $100,000 and then you're jumping to the next club that might only be $500. And not to say that ever happens, but you don't want a year where maybe you go and cut happy from a large organization down to a smaller one, and then they're getting the raw end of the deal.
And what's going to be great about this system that if it's implemented and it's implemented correctly, in future years we can look back and say, okay, this is where the finance committee allocated 40% to service-based clubs, and then they allocated 25% to the activities that are fun, like fusion and prizes and that type of stuff. So we can really do an analysis of where we stand and how we're giving away our money and what our focus is as a campus.
You're earning that sobriquet, the finance guy.
I like it. A lot of clubs I feel like are underutilized, and I think this will help as well. You were talking about the wire, and the wire is great, but I feel like in recent years it doesn't really get the buzz it deserves.
Yeah, although I do want to say that it seems, I mean, I had a show my freshman year, and I think maybe 3 people, 7 people max listened, but it was a lot of fun. I brought on some folks, occasionally called Claire or read from her Twitter feed, but it was sort of languishing. But I think this year it's turned itself around because it thinks of itself more as a service organization than as a radio station.
Right.
At least that's the mentality that Pat Clancy has brought to it. He says, we're here, we want to DJ every event. We want to,
and we've seen him
say $500 per event from any club that wants music.
That's true. And we've seen it at Iggy's and other campus events, so they're trying to make the wire a lot bigger, and that's why this is so important. But unfortunately, we have to break for a commercial, and then we hope to see you back for our next segment of Griffin Insiders.
There was one day that we had just done the cardiovascular unit, in class that day. And then right after class, I went over to the Vascular Institute, volunteered, put the scrubs on. And one of the doctors asked me if I wanted to see an open heart surgery. And so I said, yeah, really? Sure.
I came into Canisius as obviously as a freshman, not really sure what I wanted to do. I ended up taking a digital media arts class, and that really just kind of jump-started, my career.
And I think being where we are in the city and in the world with the medical campus that we have here is really an opportunity that I wouldn't have anywhere else.
It's more than just academics. Meet different people. Go out and do things. There's so much more to college. It's an experience.
I instantly fell in love with doing video work, graphic design. I started pursuing more and more opportunities in the school, whether it was doing admissions videos on the sides. I did a couple videos for alumni relations, the president of the college, and then I actually got noticed last year, and they sent me over to the Philippines to create a feature-length documentary.
I lived with the host family while I took classes in Spanish with Spanish professors at the University of Oviedo, and I was a Spaniard for a semester, and it was the best decision I made as a college student.
Tell him that I've begun to dream of things to come, and tell the trees not to look for me. I'm going to find some peace of mind. Wake the sun. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Griffin Insiders. Today we're joined by Vance Stinson.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about an important issue, which is spirit at Canisius. As everyone knows, we had PD's Pride Week a few weeks ago, which is extremely successful. And Aidan, you wrote a huge op-ed about that in the Griffin.
I don't think it was that huge.
Well, it was pretty big, pretty favorable. You want to talk about that?
Well, yeah. You know, I was a little bit biased because I was part of PD's Pride Week from the start. It was a Res Life initiative, but because I often hold myself at a critical remove from the office, I like to say that they did a really good job. But beyond that, I think that PD's Pride Week was useful in that some of its shortcomings, some of the events that weren't as well attended, could provide a sort of template or a roadmap for moving forward with these sort of mega programming events. And I think to begin with, I focused in at least what I wrote on competition, in that the idea was for Matt Mulville to get the freshman dorms and halls and floors even in competition. Unfortunately, a penny drive, a blood war, that's not enough to do it. I mean, competition, as I had a great conversation with Jim Barron on the subject, competition is about something physical, something mental, something where you can actually test your excellence. And I think that starts with a renewed interest in intramurals, a renewed college quiz bowl, and maybe even stuff with fusion. I mean, you can think of anything so long as people are actually, competing.
Interested. Well, with intramurals, how do you want people to get more involved in that? I mean, I get emails all the time. I'm not going to lie, I'm not the sportiest person around. That's not a secret. But how are you going to get other students involved?
Well, this solution leaves out the commuters for the moment, but I would say that just to begin with, first thing, we need our RAs pushing things like intramurals. And you also, I think, would need to get rid of OLs because they're like nannies with children, where the nanny comes in and then they forget who their parents are. You got to get rid of the OLs and let the RAs take orientation and really push intramurals, really push the college quiz bowl or whatever, try to get the kids involved in a more integrated and really organic way from the start. And if you get, what Jim Barron told me was that at Bonaventure, everyone on a floor, say 20 years after graduation, knew what floor they were on freshman year and knew the names of everyone on that floor. And we don't have that at Canisius. We have a lot of great things. We do not have that kind of cohesion. It's a different culture there, but he said it started with intramurals because you had the RAs or whomever pushing the sports and getting kids involved and on an individual basis. Mm-hmm. And then no matter what you're involved in, you think of yourself as a floor, then as a hall, then as a school. And then, of course, for Coach Barron, you show up to athletics together. But I think that'd be great.
Well, floor unity, I mean, that's a really big thing. You have floor events as an RA. How do you push it to the next level? And then how do you tie in commuters? Because they're not around. They don't have RAs. They're not going to have people telling them how to get involved and how to do this. How do you take it to the next level and reach them?
Well, I personally think that obviously the Commuter Student Association doesn't work a lot with Res Life right now. And coming from our sort of orthodox standpoint here, they wouldn't need to because Residence Life just oversees the dorms. But I think you're going to see greater collaboration and communication between Res Life and CPLD. That should extend to the Commuter Student Association.
I agree. As a commuter, I think that would be huge. Okay, Vance. Well, I'm really excited that you're here today because you're going to be running for Executive VP. So you clearly, I'm thinking, have an opinion on this.
Right. I think cohesion definitely breeds a sense of pride and a sense of unity amongst people. I think cohesion is important in all aspects, not just Res Life, not just CPLD, but just in all aspects of being a Canisius student. Like, for example, I'm a ULLC student and we take team learning courses. Now, team learning courses to other people may just seem like group work, but to me it's like, it gives me an example of who's the leader in a group, kind of working together to get ideas flowing and things like that. Like, I've always had a group experience at Canisius, so I know that eventually if we do implement something where there is intramurals or any sense of floor pride, that it will be beneficial.
Do you think that PD's Pride Week and the success from that is reflective of the opportunity that we have here? Because I thought that it went really well, so don't you think there's like a greater opportunity to kind of build this now than there would have been without PD's Pride Week?
Yes. I think, I'm sure Matt Melville doesn't want me to repeat this, but he did say to me that night, why don't we do this every week? Of course, he's not going to do it, and I don't think he should. But there's no reason that we can't have, for every game, for every big event, or just more than once a year, some huge blowout. I was just talking to Pat Clancy from The Wire, and I said, why don't we keep a set of speakers in the Patrick Lee, or keep it over in the CAC so that we can have pizza and some bumpin' music before every game. We just have to start thinking this way.
Well, and I think that goes right down to the whole, we need to rethink programming from top to bottom. And once you do that, I think that's when all those events are going to start to pick up steam.
Yeah.
The whole PD's Pride collaboration made me think of, in the spring, I've been thinking about what the council president's event's going to be, and I was thinking maybe we do some sort of a fundraiser with a kickball tournament or a baseball tournament with leaders from all the clubs. So I don't know, there's a bunch of ideas that can come from all this stuff.
This is great news.
I'm in.
You got me excited.
Aidan Ryan, he could be the captain of one of those
Sign
teams.
me up.
So do you think the key to more unity among floors and halls and residents and commuters is in like a giant big event, or do we need a lot of smaller events to build up to that?
If you're talking about community, it's not about the events. I really do think it's about competing somehow. It's about just being involved, and you know, engagement could be in all going to a Grifflix thing and sitting down and watch a movie together, and you know, you're going to talk a little bit. You'll meet people at the you know, popcorn, but you could leave that without really having engaged.
True.
And those are great things to have, but that kind of programming needs to float on top of the sense of community that starts on your floors and starts with CSA, which is why I think we need to push these types of things.
And I do think you need an overall theme. The overall theme does have to be the competition. You need to show that it's going to stretch throughout the year. So you encourage the students to continue going to events, continue pushing for more points as you go on.
Okay, and so do you think competition would help build this? So competition, you think, is what's going to foster this new kind of attitude?
Absolutely. I think that it's okay to have people within Canisius competing to be the best, because at the end of the day, we're all under the dome, so to speak. So none of that matters. We compete for the fun of it, but we all, I think, in that, we forge this identity as the best, as Canisius, and we forge pride in the school that way. And if you're proud of your school, you're going to go to more things. If you're proud of your school, you're going to go to Corral, because it's part of Canisius. If you're proud of your school, you're going to go to, you know, all the athletic events you can. You're going to show up to Little Theater. And I think if there's more school pride and more engagement at that level, people competing in the dorms, people competing club to club, intramurals or whatever, you're going to see more attendance campus-wide. People will make time.
I think Spirit's actually been a pretty big problem. I mean, we're always hearing about enrollment problems, or I don't like the ad campaign, and things like that. I mean, I wasn't saying me personally, but these are just things you hear about all the time, and I really do think that we've had a Spirit kind of crisis here. And I think that Canisius being a small school, you need a lot more spirit. I don't know, just my opinion.
You know, it is, going off what Aidan was saying, I spent a lot of time my freshman summer in Maine. I worked at a summer camp, and one of the big things they do is a college wars at the end of the year, end of the summer rather. And they split into 4 teams, and they basically fight to win. However, the most amazing thing is at the end of that, it doesn't matter what team you were on, because everyone's rooting for their team, of course. But at the end, they all come together, and they have this big celebration of, you know, this was our summer, it was an amazing summer. And I do think it's a very similar idea of, if we do this bunch of these different things, we get the residence halls fighting each other in a good, healthy sense, competing. We get the CSA students involved, and you know, I think that's when you're going to get that giant support out to our basketball games and general Canisius pride. I think that's how it starts.
Yeah, and also inter-office collaboration. Like Res Life and CPLD working together is pretty big. International student programs working with CPLD to throw on, you know, Global Fest is really big. Things like that. If we have a lot of more like inter-office collaboration, I think that helps too.
Right. I think there are a lot of key players here who, you know, whether they've been here a while and are you know, waking up again, or they're fresh faces. There are a lot of people who are thinking, you know, why can't we do this? And that is absolutely the attitude to have, saying, why can't we do this?
Instead of how can we, kind of flip it around.
Yeah.
It's all about the attitude. But unfortunately, we're all out of time today on Griffin Insiders, but thank you all so much for joining us. I'm your host, Claire Dirrigl, joined by
Vance Stinson,
Anthony Kroese,
Aidan Ryan.
Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next week.